Well, and that finishes chapter 2. In chapter 2, we begin by seeing Johnny heading over to Paul Revere's house, the famous silversmith, because he has some questions because he's currently building a sugar pot for Mr. John Hancock. See, Mr. Lapham had made a different pot of a smaller size years earlier, um, and he wants the set fixed because he had a bigger one, but the bigger one got melted or something. I forget exactly what happened, even though I just read it. Either way, so he goes to Paul Revere and he says, "Hey, Mr. Paul Revere, excuse me, can I talk to you?" And Paul Revere says, "Oh, Johnny Tremain, or do you want to speak to me man to man or silversmith to silversmith?" And Johnny's all like, "Oh, Paul Revere knows my name?" Anyway, they talk and he says, "Oh, your master would have taught you how to fix this handle really well, except for the fact that he's kind of out of practice. So this is what you should do. And you know what? If your master doesn't want you anymore, because you are such a fine smith, I would actually hire you out from under him if you wanted to." Johnny, in his boastfulness, this only raises his boastfulness even more. So Johnny goes back and starts to finish the cup and knows he has to finish this thing within a 2-day period, because after that it's going to be the Sabbath, and then he's not going to have a chance to finish it. So he finishes up the molding of the wax handles that night. And the next day he's about to pour it when Mr. Lapham comes in and says, "You know what? I don't care about getting this thing done on time. I'm going to start Sabbath early today." Johnny's all like, "What? We need to finish this on time. This is important." And he's all, "You know what? It doesn't matter. Come on, let's go start the Sabbath." And then Johnny goes and tells Mrs. Lapham about this, and she's like, "I'm not letting my children starve just because he wants to start Sabbath. We're going to work tomorrow, even though it's against the law and against the religion." So they start setting it up, and they have to be very quiet and very fast. Now, Johnny starts working, and he's not paying as much attention as he should while he's pouring these handles. So he ends up leaving a wax figure too close to the furnace, and it melts and leaves a waxy substance on the floor. In the meantime, Dove gets a crucible with a crack in it because he's like, "Oh, I'm going to get that Johnny and teach him a lesson." So Johnny's working, and he asks for the crucible, and Dove gives him the crucible with the crack, and he puts the metal silver bars in, the ingots, and he puts it in the fire, and he says, and he leaves it there, and suddenly it starts to boil over and boil too fast because it had a crack in it. And Johnny's like, "No!" And Johnny tries to go over and save it, but then he slips on the wax and he falls in with his hand into the metal. He looks at his hand and he notices it all silvery, but at first he doesn't feel any pain. But then he passes out. He wakes up later to find that his hand has been put into flour by Mrs. Lapham, who's like, "We can't call a doctor because it's the Sabbath and we don't want anybody to know that we were working today. So let's get the nursemaid, the birth, what's a birth maid called? We're going to go with birth maid. Basically, and she's going to wrap up the hand. She wraps the hand, but she does it wrong. She wraps it up so that his hand is still curved instead of flat. And then so as it heals, it actually gets stuck because of all the scar tissue. So about a month goes by, and they finally look at the hand, and he comes out, and it's no longer as functional as it used to be for him. So he's finding out he can never be a silversmith the way he had planned. And he starts getting really depressed and really upset, and he starts walking around the docks, and the dock guys are all feeling bad for him, and Scylla is feeling bad for him, along with Izana, and everybody's kind of feeling bad for him, and he's feeling bad for himself. And then suddenly things turn around when he used to be the top guy, but now he becomes the bottom guy on the bottom rung, and everybody's treating him badly. And this is months after the injury, but now he's the shop boy who just like gets the coal and does it. He's doing what Dove and Dusty used to do for him, and they're making fun of him for it. And Miss Lapham's treating him badly. And finally, Mr. Lapham comes over and says, "You know what? I think you're going to have to find a new trade. But I told you your boastfulness was gonna get you in trouble, but he doesn't say it like that because he tries to be nice about it. And he tells him that that Dove knew it had a crack in it, and Johnny didn't know that Dove knew it had a crack. He thought it was an accident completely. But now he knows that, and he vows revenge. We're going to see what happens next in Chapter 3.